So now I'll introduce our next speaker, and our next speaker is Brigid Price. And Bridget believes that people are the greatest asset in any business and is passionate about contributing to a positive future for everyone involved in Australian agriculture. Bridget has created Rural Resources Online, a comprehensive website that unites Australian farmers through resources, shared knowledge, expert skills, and the all-important stories of community spirit encapsulated by life on the land. Bridget's personal journey from city girl to finance manager to primary producer, mother of a future farming generation, and her experience bringing rural resources online to life gives her an extensive knowledge of contemporary issues affecting rural areas. And to add to this, I know that Bridget recently won the Citizen of the Year at the In June Australian Day Awards, so congratulations for that. So please join me in welcoming Bridget, and she's going to talk about the road less travelled. Thank you.
How are we going? Good. Hello everyone. I'm a little bit nervous, but we'll see how we go. I know today we are celebrating the importance of balance, the balancing contribution of men and women. But it's International Women's Day, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge the efforts of the rural women, particularly those that live in my local community. I chair a local women's group. This was taken at our Christmas celebrations. These women are as diverse in age and backgrounds as you can get, but they're the backbones of our community, of their families and their businesses. But most importantly, they know the importance of checking in with each other, to be there in the happy times and to support each other in the sad times. And I've really, truly benefited from the wisdom of these ladies. So I just wanted to start with acknowledging those ladies, because we see so many stories of how women are the harshest critics of other women. But I want to say, aside from my own doggedness, my husband's patience and support, it's the encouragement and support of the women from my local community and wider networks that has seen me take up the opportunities that I have been exposed to. Because ideas are great, but implementation takes time, commitment, focus, and a really good support network to back you up, particularly with logistical support. I'm getting more comfortable in my own skin and saying yes to opportunities for growth, but the reality is I live in rural Australia. So on top of the mummy guilt that I have, the logistics to manage when I step away from my farm and home is quite significant. And I just wanted to start today by acknowledging these quiet women in the bush. What I love about the theme today is grassroots agriculture really is good at acknowledging the balance between men and women, and they recognise the different skill sets, and people step up when needed. We're pretty adaptive, and I'm always impressed with what people can achieve. You'll soon learn, I'm not here today due to my extensive public speaking experience, but my contribution to agriculture is really in alignment with my personal journey. My youngest is 9, so public speaking and stepping away is quite new. So what's my story? I was a city chick who, after going to university and travelling overseas, decided I wanted to see more of Australia before I climbed the corporate ladder and settled down. But I ended up in Roma, and I fell in love and married a farmer, grazier, 20 years ago, much before they made reality TV shows popular on the subject. And I could actually do a whole talk on what really happens when a farmer finds a wife. For many years, I did what most people do who have a city background and who marry into a farming family. I put aside my professional career. I got back to basics, learning about what it actually means to have a life on the land. I became a primary producer myself, and I had to evolve into the reality of being a member of an intergenerational farming family. Currently, I'm a beef producer from central Queensland, a wife of a 6th-generation grazier, a primary producer, mother of Australia's future farmers, and members of a wonderful rural community. Prior to marrying, I was a hospital manager and finance manager with Queensland Health. Like anyone who makes a living from the land, my life has involved challenges, and I'm constantly looking at new ways to adapt to this changing environment in which we operate. I don't just think of a problem, I switch straight into, okay, what are the issues? What are we going to do? Problem-solving mode, solutions. Not always popular with everyone around me, but I give it a go. A few years ago, I identified a need to create an online platform, which we're alluding to, for Australian farming families to access the up-to-date tools and resources that would really help individuals thrive and our businesses grow for generations to come. The project continues to evolve, and for that I'm really grateful. Today I'll tell you a little bit more about myself, my family, our business, and why I'm so passionate about agriculture, in particular Australian farming families. Then hopefully that'll give you a few takeaways in exchange for your time today. So we are beef producers from the Arcadia Valley in central Queensland, which is about 175 kilometres north of Roma. My husband is the second generation on that property. His father Arthur was 19 when he drew a ballot block as part of the Brigid development scheme in 1963. From that initial 2 properties, we bought another property. From that initial one, we bought another 2 in the area and also a property at Blackhall. When fully stocked, we were running over 6,000 head of cattle on about 50,000 hectares. In recent years, we've sought out premium markets for our products, and we now operate an organically certified operation. Last year, we sold the Blackhall property, and we intend to roll that capital into another property in the near future. Our children work in our business, and they share our vision for that positive future in terms of what we do and why. When I say that quickly, that actually sounds like a dream run to be standing up here. But anyone who works in the land knows there's immense challenges along the way. All of our properties have been in drought at different times. We've personally, after 12 months, not even 12 months, 9 months, at the Blackhall property, had to take 1,450 calving cows on the stock route. We have fought the government and won the right to develop the land on our Blackhall property in particular. And through personal tragedy, we've had to work out how to operate with less people and more efficiency. Most recently, we have negotiated a coal seam gas contract. And now we have to manage and live with the reality of how we continually protect our assets to make that coexistence a manageable reality. In recent years, we've actually changed our focus to recognise the fact we are small business owners who grow grass to fatten cattle. In recognising that we are small business owners who have a grazing business, we've actually had to modify our management practices, improve communication, and really look to what's happening outside of our business. We're currently constantly reviewing consumer and community trends, and we work proactively to position our business to achieve maximum returns. The decision to transition to organic was purely based on the fact that we can get a premium market return for our product. We've also completed the process and are now grazing BMP certified against 150 international standards, including environmental management and animal welfare. We know consumers don't want to be bombarded and they don't want to be lectured. We just want to be able to reassure them it's okay, we're doing the right thing, we're meeting the standards. We look after our animals and we are custodians of the environment. I'm very much a systems and process person, but I also studied human resource management and organisational behaviour at uni. And as we said, I really believe that people are the greatest asset in any business. Look after the people because they're already out there looking after everything else. Show them appreciation that their contribution matters and they'll step up every time. What we've also realised through our experience is that just as important as the success you achieve in business is the type of person you become and the fact that we're role models for our children. As a family farming enterprise, we rely heavily on each other. When we were going for grazing BMP accreditation, I decided, not just to document it, but to pass the audit and really set up an integrated system for how we operate our business and why. It won't be death by PowerPoint, but I did just wanted to say what we've done. We looked first at what big business do, and we just modified it for our own business. We nutted out and we wrote down a business vision. We then wrote a business plan based on our values, and documented through policies and procedures exactly what we're doing. This is an example of two of our policies, one on stock management, one on animal production. So essentially, it's a 1 or 2 sentence policy, and then we stepped into how we implement it in our business, and that then transformed into checklists. So when we're branding, the pre-checklist for that, we also wrote information sheets. We practiced low stress stock handling, and also anything else that we needed to do. References that are relevant for our business are all included in that. It was not a simple process. Yes, my husband, who is a paddock man, was in pain. I do remember him rolling around on the office floor going, God, why? Why do you need to know when I put the bulls out? You know, what does it really matter? But he does agree now that it has been a really worthwhile exercise for our business. Now this, you can't quite see, this is our property sign. So by clarifying our business vision and the values, it really helps us to keep focused in terms of our long-term direction when we set our next sort of goals. We can just say, where are we going? Is it in line with our values? And we can act from there. We looked at ways to be compliant while living our values, and this property sign's a good example. We didn't want one that just said warning, biosecurity and everything else, so we wanted to make sure that we were compliant. So essentially it says, welcome to Hillyvale, one of our properties, and we operate, it's our welcome to our home and also an organic property. Family and friends, head on up. Business visitors, we operate in accordance with best management practice. Please respect, come to the main office. So just taking a simple idea and saying, this is how we want it to work for us. We don't do anything different in our business to most other primary producers. We just recognise that if we document it and go through this process, we can actually switch into that business mode. The mind shift away from us being primary producers first and foremost to being small business owners who operate a grass growing and beef fattening business, was evolved over a few years, and during that time that's when I was working on my other project, which is rural resources. As a primary producer, I was really frustrated that issues kept coming up. I would identify problems and there was really no central place to go, particularly for Australian farming families. It was actually a conversation with Joe Gandemi, who I believe dubbed me in today as well, about the website. I was at a grazing B&P workshop, best management practice. She had done an amazing job of bringing really great presenters together, amazing information and displays, but there were 20 producers in the room. And I asked why don't you put all this information together in a central place on a website? So people who aren't here, like my husband, who is allergic to meetings and workshops, who isn't there, where could he go? And she said, look, we've tried at different departments. It's really just in the too hard basket. So I left that day with an identified problem and my mind went towards finding a solution. It wasn't an easy project. It's been evolving over a few years because I knew nothing on the online world, and it had to all be achieved on top of everything else that I was doing. So it involved many late nights and early mornings, and the internet is a pretty dark hole you can go down and around. And as I started putting the website together, just to have that central place for tools and resources and information we needed, I realised that the access to the information was good, but for businesses such as ours, just as important was having a platform where issues that were relevant we could actually discuss in a supportive way. If you're a member of an intergenerational farming family, you will know succession planning is something we don't do great as an industry. All relationships take time, commitment and a lot of work, but most importantly, they need information, open communication and a really good support system. So to the website, as it evolved, I added a blogging section, and that's really a place where anyone with a positive contribution to agriculture can submit an article, to hopefully start meaningful conversations. Hence the title, one of them, I think it's Farming Families, 3 Things to Thrash Out with Your In-Laws. Things that we need to talk about, but we doesn't necessarily haven't. There's also talk in there from, they all say my name, but we've also got things from solicitors talking about succession planning, things to be aware of, so not just me. Along with the website came the world of social media, and for me, that was a really big learning curve because I really hadn't been on social media or Facebook. This is an example of just a few things giving it a go. Around beef last year, there was a lot of talk and a lot of, I felt, attack personally on my family and friends with the veg management. I looked at some of the videos that the government and that put out, and basically I just followed the format and put some together. One got over 34,000 views, did another one 31,000, 19,000 views. So given that's all organic traffic, it seemed pretty good, but it also made me step back and go back to my values of what rural resources is about. These videos are important, but it's really easy to go down a negative commentary route. So for me, the challenge is to engage with a much wider audience, but not take the easy option of the negativity. So I haven't really done much more. I will, but I really want to get my head around it and evolve those skills, if that makes sense. This is an example of a poem, the things I like to put out. So this is a poem just about being a farmer, and I think it's great. And the thing is, it engages not just with our farming community, but it makes people put in the comments, you guys do great stuff, good on you farmers. And so it's that much more positive narrative, which I'm a lot more comfortable with. Instagram. Now my kids are on Instagram, so I have a son who goes fishing and he's got GoPros and he makes videos, and so he was going down that route. I have a teenage daughter as well, so it was really about getting on, trying to show them, you know, what you put online stays online, you know, the image and everything. So it was really trying to be a bit educational. Felt a bit random just putting photos. I'm a quote person, so most of mine have quotes with them. But then at the same time, so this was exactly around the Fair Laws for Farmers, and there was that day of action. So this is my beautiful community down the bottom. We just put a call out, and of course you probably can't see it, but yeah, they all came. We had a cuppa, and we joined the online protest, I guess it was called that day. Twitter, I've tried, and I do try, but I find it really negative platform, so I kind of stay away from it. But yeah, I understand we need to. This one here I just wanted to show. Over the Christmas New Year period, our life was consumed with battling a bushfire. Without going into details, I ended up sharing my frustrations on Facebook, and I was really overwhelmed by the interactions that we received. We lost over 15,000 acres of grass, so it was a pretty tough time. And social media can be used to share stories and keep the narrative mostly positive. And I'm really fortunate that I manage the page, so I dictate the direction and tone of conversations. And that was good. I mean, so the reach was really good. I think that was a while ago, 193, 71,000 engagements, so 1,600 shares. So people are out there, and the story and all of that was really, that post was about saying thank you to our family and friends who stood up. It started in the national parks. They have a fatigue management policy. They walked away. It wasn't about that. It was the focus we put on was saying, you know, thanks, because a lot more animals and everything would have perished if these people hadn't have just worked day in and day out to help us. And this is where I'm most comfortable, is in the trenches, working at the grassroots level. So while putting the website together was technically challenging, a bigger challenge for me, besides, oh, there you go, I'll put that one there. A bigger challenge for me is, besides keeping my pages together, is the recognition that I can put this product or this resource together, but I had to actually say, this is me and this is why and this is what it's about. I really had to sell my why, as they say. Now I can go to the photo. So this is my why, this is what drives me. As we said, my reasons are simple. I'm a grazier, I'm married to a grazier, most of my friends are graziers, and I am the mother of Australia's future farmers. As my 15-year-old son will tell you, there is really no point to be at school because he knows where he wants to be. And this stuff, it affects me personally, so I'm driven to see how we can do things better. A few years ago, I was asked to do a video promoting safety on farms through Future Beef. Joe, I think, was behind that too. And I'd recently coordinated 14 families in our area to receive workplace health and safety training, manuals, because to increase, we have a lot of CSG activity, so I wanted to make sure that as business owners we were covered. So from that, knowing about that, I was asked to promote the topic. And the reason I do it is because, unfortunately, I'm a living statistic of farm accidents. Through no fault of my own, all three men in my husband's immediate family were impacted within an 18-month period. My father-in-law was killed in the cattle yards, my husband broke his neck in a four-wheeler accident mustering, and my son shattered his spleen and needed an emergency splenectomy to save his life. So it'll come as no surprise, I'm also a member, with my background in health, of our local community advisory network with Queensland Health, because with my frequent flyer record, I need the facilities to remain open. I also know that just as passionate as myself are those other members of the community. The difference is my background enables me to articulate the issues because I know the government speak and the language that we need to talk about to achieve the positive outcomes. The way I see it, I just have a different skill set that also helps to make our community successful. I'm not the best cook, and I'm really fortunate quite often I can just say, can I give you some money towards catering because you don't want my food necessarily. So they're great, they'll say, you do that, you do your stuff and we'll do this. So I'm really lucky. Prior to getting married, being that district finance manager, I really know that doctors play an essential component of a healthy community on a lot of levels. And at different times, as I said, I get called up. So because I not only have empathy, but understanding in these situations, I know why we have to fight for on-par resources in rural communities. We don't just deserve access to medical assistance, we have every right to highly skilled practitioners. So even though I'm articulate and I can talk about it, it really takes me time to speak up on my own behalf, which mentioned before. It's a confidence thing for women. And this in itself, it's taken a couple of years as Rural Resources has evolved. But I just wanted to talk about a few projects that are beneficial. So Q ran back a WIRE program, which is called Women in Rural Regional Remote Entrepreneurship. And it actually kicked off for me on a 2-day boot camp to Chinchilla. A friend of mine said, oh, do you want to come to this? I didn't know much about it. I hadn't seen Em in a long time, so I was like, great, 2 days, we went. And the only thing I had to do was I had booked in to take my son on a distance ed sports camp, and that's the one event that the men will actually go to. So my husband actually went because he knew other men would be there. And it's funny, they told everybody I was on a wire sculpting a few days. It was, you'd relate to it. But anyway, they thought it was funny. So from there, I participated in a 12-week hub program, and we had to set a goal. So my goal was knowing I needed to increase the awareness of rural resources and my own profile. As part of that process, I submitted a couple of letters, commentary, to the Country Life. Now, that accountability in that program made me actually hit send. You know, normally you go, I should do this. So I actually had to do it. And then from this little action, I was actually contacted this year to be one of the 10 contributors to the View from the Paddock commentary. So I've done my first one. So every 6 weeks, I get to talk about more of my opinion. The other thing I wanted to talk about last year, from what I've been doing, I was fortunate to be selected to one of the 8 women throughout Australia to participate in the National Farmer Federation Diversity and Agricultural Leadership Mentoring Program. I had an incredibly patient mentor called Bindi Turner, who really would have wondered why she got me, because we had to initially identify 3 leadership goals for us personally. My focus is on helping people through rural resources. So I didn't have specific leadership aspirations, so I found it a bit challenging. The vision for the program is to see more females in the ranks of agricultural leadership. NFF want more women involved in influencing the big decisions that shape our future because we think and strategise differently. The statistics currently aren't great. Over 2.3% of CEOs in Australian agribusiness are female compared to 17% in other industries. In leadership roles, 13% are women compared to 28% in other industries. David Littleproud is a great advocate. He aims to get 50% representation of women in his board roles. Now, with around 70,000 women working in agriculture, there's an amazing talent pool of capable, intelligent women. I'm speeding because I see I'm going slow. It's a bit slow. intelligent women whose contribution at a high level would significantly benefit agriculture. Now, the challenge is not just to address the boys' club mentality. We've also got to sell these opportunities to women, because these commitments take time away from your home, your family and business, and you've really got to weigh up how meaningful the return will be. And there are programs such as EvokeAg, which are great. That was held in Melbourne. I looked at it, the then Prime Minister put a call out, and I was interested. I looked at the program, over 100 speakers, 20 different countries. The reality was I looked at the price. That was scary enough. Then you add cost of accommodation and airfares. I realised there weren't going to be a lot of grassroots farmers and graziers able to participate. Traditionally, the older males have been the decision makers, just as they are in their business and at the industry level. On farm, 50% of the cohort are female. Many highly skilled women have been forgotten for a long time. Many are part of an intergenerational family, and they don't have the access to the funds to attend these events such as EvokeAg. Opportunities need to come, not just in targets and programs, but also through sponsorship and opening the doors through networks. There's a need to continually challenge this cultural assumption for our industry to remain viable. At this point, I really want to acknowledge Advanced Queensland and the initiatives that they've got. I was recently fortunate to attend an advisory board's masterclass. It's an area I wouldn't have thought about or had any knowledge about, and that's to also increase the participation of women in boards. And I'm really appreciative of that opportunity, because it's great to say ag tech and food tech ecosystems are the futures, and primary producers have to make themselves, aware of them and embrace them. But we have to say how we're going to do it. I know these players are new to the industry are going to do really well. So my focus is on the existing families trying to manage the overwhelm of droughts, floods, fire, poor communication, political targeting, compliance requirements, and changing consumer and community expectations. I worry currently that the average age of landholders is 68. Some don't use Excel spreadsheets, and let alone they're all being told, adopt the latest technologies, go online, share your story. Now, that's not to say these are not successful, innovative and adaptive people. They just aren't sold on expensive conferences, new gadgets, when they have so many other inputs they're currently trying to manage. Plus, they don't want to be into self-promotion. So how can we get better at sharing our stories at the grassroots level, the great lifestyle we have, and how we look after our animals and care for the environment? That's a whole other talk to have to do on Friday in Emerald, so wish me luck. But it's a really important one, another area I'm passionate about, because right now, other groups are doing a much better job. They're well-resourced. They have expertise in marketing and PR. They're telling our stories, and ones that don't depict what it actually means to be an Australian primary producer. I really just wanted to end with this slide and tell you it's actually a good example of what it means to a picture not quite telling a story. So first, the quote really sums up when I met Minister Littleproud. And I was talking to a fellow Queenslander, Mike Guerin, he's the AgForce CEO, and he came over, Minister Littleproud, if that's what you're supposed to say, came over and introduced himself. He thought I was in his electorate. He was quite excited, but I actually have to vote in a different one from where we live. But that was great. And I was actually talking about, it probably looks like this was the launch of the NFF program. We look like we're really into discussion and it's, this fantastic initiative. I was actually saying I couldn't get home and I had to go shopping in Roma, and that my earrings were locally made and my jacket and my pants and my shoes. So we were purely talking shopping. But it looks good and it looked great. But yeah, so the NFF program, going back to that and the importance of it, it was worthwhile, and it really made me realise a few things, and there's 3 key areas I just want to finish up with. It's okay to show up as your authentic self and be the leader you want to be. It is not capacity or capability that women lack, but rather the confidence and connections to take on higher level leadership roles. And the skills that women are using to contribute at their local community are invaluable resources that can be applied at the higher level in agriculture to contribute to this industry. They just need to be given the opportunity to do so. Thanks.
Thanks, Bridget. A wonderful story. And I should just acknowledge some of the other extension officers that gave me the names. And Bridget, you mentioned Joe's name because I had never heard of Bridget before. So some of these other ladies in the organisation gave me names of people to contact, and thankfully they all said yes, and we have a great lineup today. So do we have a couple of questions for Bridget?
Terrific presentation. With your focus on process, on organic property, does that focus and the documentation you're creating help you in dealing with big retail?
I would love to do the whole paddock to plate big retail, but the reality is we're organic beef producers. The prime money for us is American, so the USDA market. So yes, so it's really not for us, but it's more in terms of we did the documentation and that because we know that 10% of the producers who self-assess, the industry needed to be able to have that external qualification. So we took it on, number one, for the industry, number one, to show our kids a better way, and really just to have that framework to say there's 150 international standards. We, like many other business owners, are meeting it. So, and no doubt, like a lot of those programs, so the grassroots body came up with the, George, you might remember, Grasslands is, there was the certification to say that we as producers, this was a grass-fed thing. PCAS, yeah. So we participated in PCAS and we did that. The reality was those bigger, it's all into having your own label now. So the bigger industries, they've got all their own labels. So Tees and the like took that essential program, developed at the industry level. They have changed it for their own commercial purposes to benefit from it. So a lot of this grassroots stuff that producers are identifying that they're needing, they're doing the work. They're not necessarily getting the benefit because it's being taken on by other things. But the flip side is we as producers need to be doing this stuff as well. So it's a split. I look forward to the future when producers who are acting up and above and are meeting all those things, that the market actually recognises that additionally in a premium return, not just for saying the organic market has a thing, but also saying, these are the producers meeting, the animal welfare and all of that stuff. So I think that will come as it will come with the meat quality and that direction that it's going to. So yes, so for us it was not right now, but in the future.
So you're USDA accredited?
Yes.
Do we have one last question?
Hello. Hey, Tanya.
Hi, Tanya Atkinson from Unique Management. Nice to see you again, Bridget.
Hello.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. My question's similar to Jess's for Jess. What's your end goal or vision for Rural Resources? I think it's a great idea and platform. I just want to know how big, where's it get to?
For me, it's doing what I did last year and stepping up and realising the skills that we're using at this level, we can look and help a lot more people at a bigger stage. Made me do a full circle and realise in Canberra there's a lot of people working really hard that are doing amazing things for our industry, and there's a lot of people at this level, at the grassroots, doing it. What we're really missing is that connecting loop between, because I actually got frustrated. Down there I thought if another person said we in agriculture have to share our story, because community expectations and consumers need to be managed. So I'm really happy down here trying to helping the grassroots people, but through that connecting loop. So I don't know how that happens, but it's really just being exposed to more opportunities to talk to people and potentially on things such as these advisory boards, which I hadn't really been exposed to. But it's really at that level and being happy to be a spokesperson to say, we're the practical producers on the ground. We are happy to talk to you. We are happy to say, yes, this works, this won't. And looking at directives. From doing the posts I did on the fire, we ended up on the news, we ended up on a few things. We got mentioned in Parliament. And AgForce, who are working really hard to look at the reviews, they actually organised for an officer from the disaster unit, I think, from the Inspector General's unit. He was out at our property yesterday with a couple. So talking at that level, just saying, we're happy to put ourselves out there to say this is the legislation. For us, it was a workplace health and safety issue on 2 areas, on the widths of the fire breaks and also the fatigue management policy that's not backed up with resources to manage it. So for us, duty of care. So for me, I think the challenge is, can we look at, it's really great to be passionate, it's great to share our story, but politically we don't have the clout. So I look at things, I had to do a workplace representatives course a few weeks ago, and that's where I said to them, how does legislation trump legislation? Because the way I see it, if we as the primary person are responsible for our workplace and we have workers who are just volunteers, people fighting the fire and also staff coming in, there's a duty of care for us. So I said, what if we hit the department and this up to say this is a workplace breach, then work cover have to come in and investigate, and it's a much higher level. So I suppose I kind of look at that challenge as the same when we had to fight the tree clearing legislation. So when we had to go back and fight that, there were like 3 of us on this side. My son was 6 weeks old. My mum had him outside the door. There were 15 lawyers on the other side. But we stuck with the legislation. It said you could take your country back to its pre-clearing state or original. Back then the government was using the 1960 aerials. So I went to the state archives and we had open undulating country originally. So I suppose it's the systems and processes and saying, how can we actually use the system, stay within the system, because a lot of people, even the department officers, will go out it. So I suppose that's me at the moment going, how can we get smarter with what we're doing to actually take them on at that level so that people do get put on notice? I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bridget.